waiting patiently. Let's get him on here. He is the one and the only Mr. Ooh La La. What is going on, my brother?
Ooh la la! Ha ha! And you're right, you are a control freak holding on to my tag team title.
Oh man! So yeah, I got to spend the day with we're gonna call him Michael today. You're Michael. You're Mr. Ooh La La, but you are Michael. So I got to spend the day with Michael the other day, and I had such a good time, man. You know,
that was a good afternoon.
It was a lot of fun, man. And you know, I really haven't spent time like that in like, even though it was a small setting, but a wrestling locker room like the other day, just creating and having fun and riffing back and forth and breaking balls. It was just a lot of fun. I had a blast.
Oh, and poor Frank, boy, did he get busted, huh?
It makes the day better when Frank is the blunt of most of the jokes.
I've got to agree. For me, the only one missing was Wyndham, my partner in crime, coming up on the 14th.
It's going to be fun. October 14th, everybody. You got to come out. Glen Olden, Pennsylvania, Briarcliff Firehouse. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait. So, you know, I was trying to think. I think I started with Kettner. I think it was 93. And you were already with Kettner. And the one thing that I remember that stood out with you out of the whole crew was you were the only one who had actually gone to wrestling school out of Kettner's whole locker room. So I remember me and you actually talking a lot because we were, I'm not going to say outsiders, but I mean, I definitely was the outsider, but I looked at you as kind of an outsider too because you had that legitimate training as well.
You're right. Because back then, Kettner did a lot of his training, and he was on the bottom floor of an apartment building, and he had foam mats down in one room in which he taught the boys how to bump and do that. Subsequently, he had a lot of the stuff written out for the guys so that it would teach them how to put a match together. It was actually, and I actually still have some of those notes from way back when. And if you ask Pat Kenny, my favorite phrase tagging it with him was the phrase, "What's next?" because I couldn't remember a damn thing because I wasn't trained that way.
You know, it's funny because I remember when I went and met with Kettner for the first time, and we sat and we talked, and I mean, it was truly like, I mean, we spent a couple hours together. It was kind of like going through a whole interview process, and you know, he talked to me about all types of stuff, and I mean, he truly put me through like a question and answer thing, and like to get to know me and where my head was, and if I would fit in the locker room. I mean, it was a real process, and then he told me like his ideas, like he already had everything like mapped out in his head, like what he planned for me to do and all. And I remember when he said to me, he goes, "Well, you know, my guys, you know, I script everything out for them," and I'm thinking to myself, all right, yeah, well, you know, okay, like I get that. But then when he started showing me, he had actual scripts for every match. I was completely blown away. Like I couldn't believe this.
Yeah, join the club. And I like we weren't trained that way.
Right. Yes. Yeah, so it was weird.
It was weird, and I can promise you that was for about 25 years. What's next was in my vocabulary. That was the thing that I said most, I think, besides "ooh la la."
Oh, that's so awesome. Now, where were you originally trained at?
All right, I started in 1987 at the Monster Factory. That was run by Larry Sharp and Buddy Rogers at the time. In my class, in 1987, was Bam Bam Bigelow with his head starting to be tattooed. Scotty the Body, you know, as Raven.
Yeah.
Mountain Mike Moore was there.
Okay.
Who incidentally made it to the 3-match VHS tape for Sergeant Slaughter. It was one of the matches. Sergeant Slaughter versus Mountain Mike Moore from the AWA. Masked Chaos was there. A Wonderful Man, Tony Stetson, was there.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if you knew of a Chris the Edge Evans.
Yes, I remember the name.
Yes, Wonderful Man. That was my foundation, and I only went in there to be a referee because they told me, and I quote, and by 1987 standards, they were correct. At 75 pounds, I was too small to be a wrestler. So I actually went in to be trained as a referee.
Wow. Now, how did you find out about a wrestling school? I remember when I found out, which was probably around that time, was seeing Larry Sharp and Bigelow on a morning talk show. It might have been like Phil Donahue or something.
I'm going to credit Bill Apter's magazines. I've got to think that I saw that was the closest to Pro Wrestling Illustrated, or maybe Wrestling's Main Event. That came out briefly, but I got to think it was either The Wrestler or Pro Wrestling Illustrated that I saw a list of all the schools. I don't think it was the almanacs. They came out, I think, later. But I think it was one of those magazines that was the closest school. And I remember driving up there with my father because I was just 1987. I was 21.
No kidding. Now, what did your father think?
It's the old, this is what you want to do talk. That's pretty much how it was. I had already been out. I had actually been out of the house by then. I was the smartest man on the planet, just like today.
You lived the gimmick from a young age.
It's in the blood, you know. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah, this is true.
And being at that fire hall Saturday, it started pumping again for you. I could see it.
It was fun. I'm telling you. I see that I'm better in that element. I was having more fun being able to just create the stuff, help put together those little vignettes and stuff. I mean, that was a lot of fun. Come on, Pierre.
Oh, that was fun. Yeah. Oh, that was great. But honestly, I didn't catch it until I watched it again. That when you said, first of all, you kept telling me no when I tried to take my title, but then you said, and I quote, "And come see this." That was pretty cool for me, to be honest with you.
It's gonna be fun.
Yeah, because like I tell everybody, they always ask you, "Do you know what you're going to do?" I said, "Nope, we're all going to be surprised." Because I have no idea what I'm going to do until I get in there. It's all organic, you know.
That's it. So, all right, so you were trained as a referee then. Did you how did you switch to becoming a wrestler? Was it with Larry or?
Well, I learned how to bump with Larry because subsequently there was 3 guys left, and one pair was a tag team, so they needed to put a tag team together. So honestly, I learned how to bump at the Monster Factory. I learned how to bump like a madman. But then, back then, I sent out letter upon letter upon letter to anybody and everybody up and down the East Coast trying to get work, and nobody was hiring because later on I would learn it's not what you know, but who you know.
Yeah.
And I didn't know the right people. So then a friend told me that he knew Haley Morgan and her father. So in 1989, 90, I can't remember. It's been a while. I drove without a GPS, even without Rand McNally's map, to Bricktown, New Jersey to meet him. That was the night Heidi wrestled Wendy in the cage.
Okay.
I got to meet Les, and that's when he told me it's not what you know, it's who you know. He gave me his address and told me to meet him at his house on that Saturday. I said, okay. I drove back home. That was a Friday night show, I believe. I'm not 100% sure, but at some point I go to Les's house. Heidi's there. They did not have a ring yet. They had old tires on the ground. Then they had plywood, a piece of foam, a rug, and a piece of canvas. That's where Artie Palmer and Ricky Bauer gave me body slam after body slam after body slam after body slam after body slam, and I don't know how many. And then they told me to come back the next day. I was like, that's it? They're like, yes. I woke up the next day like a piece of lumber. I could hardly move, and I came back. And Les said, I'll teach you how to work. Because that was the test. If I would come back after taking all that abuse, that I was serious about what I was doing. So subsequently, before we worked out, we had to strip and refinish furniture. Because he had a stripping and refinishing business. So that's what we did, and then we worked out. And then that's how I learned how to work. Artie taught me how to work. He taught me how to protect myself. He taught me how to shoot if need be. Because back then, as you know, some of the veterans were bitter and angry as the young comers were coming, taking their spots, and there was times that people would try to hurt one another.
Sure.
I was fortunate enough that I didn't have to defend myself, even to the point where I did a show in Trenton, New Jersey. I wrestled Artie Palmer. It was a 5-minute squash match. I put him over, and then they sent me out later when Cousin Luke and Abdul the Butcher were wrestling. When all hell broke loose, they sent me out to stop Abdul the Butcher. I run in the ring. I get the chop. I go down. I roll out. Next thing you know, I'm too close to the apron, and he gives me the chair the hard way, right across the back. But to his credit, he took me to the back afterwards and told me where to be, how to place myself, because this was my freshman year actually working, take care of me in a better way. That's when I learned how to work. I learned how to use my facial expressions. In fact, I can credit Barry Casino as well, and him insisting and learning that if I don't spend hours in front of the mirror making the dumbest looks on I could possibly make as a heel, that's they may not hear me because I don't have a voice like Iron Mike Sharp, but they certainly can see me. And it's all part of all of how I was taught how to work.
Now, what was the gimmick you were doing then? Was that the Irish Mickey gimmick from then, or was that something Kettner started you with? Or?
No, I started. Yes, Les named me Mickey O'Brien. I still have my green gear. In fact, if you see my Robin Hood gimmick that I used for Halloween, they're my trunks from 1987, my tights that I still use today.
Oh, that's awesome.
I kept my figure. But he because Irish, it was a good feel thing, and it was a character. But it was Kettner, and it's true, while sitting on the can, came up with the Mr. Ooh La La gimmick. And then here we are, 31 years later, and I think I've done a nice job taking the character from what Barry Casino and we started by just standing out there for show after show after show, trying to sell this perfume called Je ne peux plus and Je ne peux pas. It was a grotesque contraption that Barry put together that was foul. But it reminded me of what they did with Brutus the Barber Beefcake and Elias, where he would come out and play guitar. Brutus would come out and walk around the ring with the big shears. Nothing was said, no interactions with anybody, and that's how I was introduced. And to this day, obviously with Elias, it still works.
Big time. I mean, the whole this whole gimmick. I mean, I remember when you first started doing it, I was just like, this is just gold. This is just complete wrestling gold. And yeah, I mean, all these years later, I mean, it's so fresh and new. Even every time I see it, I'm just like, this is great. Like, it just cracks me up every time.
Well, that's because here's the biggest secret that's not a secret in wrestling. Watch the 80s, watch the 70s, because today's youth is so used to what they see conditioned on TV that if I'm doing something from the 70s and 80s, that's new. It's new to them. That's honestly, and I listen. If one kid says something rotten to me, you can bet I have a comment for that kid. In fact, I might cry, and he'll know it, because my lip will quiver. I'll make that noise, then I'll tell him to shut it. But once his voice matters, he matters, and then that becomes infectious.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a name out at you, and I haven't seen this guy in it's over 20 years. And I was wondering if you have any idea whatever happened to him. And that's it was one of Kettner's guys, Blue Thunder.
I went to one of his birthday parties a couple years ago, and I actually, I have not seen him. I will have to find him, and I know how to find him. I will get a hold of Cheetah Master, and I will hunt him down for you.
Yeah, I mean,
but he was a gem.
Yeah. Yeah, we always had a blast.
He used to open up Wormer's gym back then. He used to open it up for him because he would always work out in the morning. Oh, yeah. I bet you Michael Wormer is still in contact with him, Cheetah Master.
Interesting. I should shoot him a message and ask him.
Yes, absolutely. He'll reach out to you.
Now, how about when Kettner ended up retiring and selling ECWA? Was that a shock to you?
A little bit of it was a shock to me, but I knew it was coming because he was getting older. He had plans of moving down to Florida with his brother, who unfortunately had passed away prior to everything happening, I believe, if that timing was correct. And I believe that in lieu of recent events with me, I truly understand what happened when he lost his brother.
Yeah.
And for him, I'm sure today it still sometimes doesn't seem real.
Sure, absolutely.
And for me, it's okay. We don't make the arrangements with God; He makes them for us. It was time.
True.
So just be ready and have your gear packed. Okay, that's all I can tell you. But because the gimmick's coming with me. Okay. But that may have been one of the catalysts that made his decision. He did have a family that he had relationships with, and it was a different time of his life. So I respect what happened, and though I have not heard from him since he left the big organization, if the time is right, perhaps he'll reach out to me. But I'm at peace with everything, and like I said, I wouldn't. He gave me the idea. He helped me get the foundation for Ooh La La in the beginning, and then it's been mine ever since. And I think I've done a nice job.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. No denying that. Now, how about as I was going through and I actually came across some old things of you. Did you do a scaffold match? Is that true?
Yes, and no lie, it was cool. All right, you dropped an F-bomb, so I'm going to say something. It was cool as shit that Stevie Richards was in the crowd that night, okay? And watch me perform that match, okay? That was a big freaking deal for me. just to be honest with you, working with you, knowing your legacy was a big deal too. So that, but the fact that the scaffold match, the scaffold actually did not fit over the ring. That's why we had to make it an impromptu match. And when ECWA had a school down in the Newport area or Christiana area, I remember they set up about 10 feet of scaffolding, and they asked me to climb up it. Well, that's when I learned how afraid of heights I was. And the worst part about that, when you looked up, there was no ceiling, so all you saw were the stars. So 3 feet might as well have been 300 feet as far as I was concerned, because it seemed like forever I was trying to go up. And yes, there was la-la on my buttocks that evening with a Sharpie when he pulled my trunks down. And as a good heel, I'll have you know that when I opened up the first bag of powder and it went all over the crowd and the crowd laughed at me, the joke was on them because I had a second one.
So I'm guessing you took the bump off the scaffold?
We both did. In fact, I was hanging from the scaffold and like, all right, JJ, I'm going to kick you about 4 or 5 times, and you don't move. You kick me once, and I'll drop. Well, as I was kicking him, I don't know if he didn't understand or heard, but he went down first. So I was like, well, this will be better for me, number one, because now I got an extra cushion. But to Kettner's credit, he said, and I quote, "This match has not ended. The last man standing on top of the scaffold will be declared the winner." So then we were down there for what seemed like forever, and the fans were rallying, and then finally he raced up to the top for the win.
All right, so I'm going to ask you the same exact question I asked to Bobby Eaton when I interviewed him on a radio show many years ago. And I said to him, when the idea of a scaffold match is brought to you, what makes you say yes?
To be honest with you, it's business. However, when he said that he wanted us to do body slams and backdrops up there, when JJ and I got up there, we looked at each other and said, there'll be none of that up here tonight. And we both agreed to it because that was scary enough being up there. But to be honest with you, to me, it was just business. And to be honest with you, look at the greats that have done scaffold matches. The Road Warriors. Who wouldn't want to be? I was there for skyscrapers in the 80s at the Civic Center.
That would have made me even more say no. Like, I remember those matches, man. There is no way I would be getting up on top of one of them things.
All right, so in the early 90s, I was still invincible. Okay?
There you go. Now, how about I mean, it's 31 years in the wrestling business. I mean, and we were talking about this the other day. I mean, it's true love. I mean, you have a true love for this business to keep going.
I do. I can't shake it. And being part of LAW is my next step. Because what better tribute to a person's legacy is to develop the talent to replace you. That's my job. I'm not going to live forever. I want the next generation of Ooh La Las, of Dave Reeves, of Franks, of Chubby Dudleys, of Bay Reganis. I want the next generation to have the same passion that I have. And to be honest with you, I was blessed 2 years ago to be able to speak to Danny's students at the Monster Factory.
Oh, nice.
I showed him. I was able to, and in fact, I was able to speak to him. I was able to speak with Mark Mess's crew up at the dungeon.
Okay.
And I still want to go other places and give back because this is what this is my job now, as far as I'm concerned, to give back.
That's awesome.
So much has been given to me over the decades that it's time. I don't want to take it with me.
That's awesome.
If they're willing to listen, you know who has been remarkable listening and has worked a lot, and I really respect him, has been Killian McMurphy. And I told him every time part of Ooh La La, if I dropped a leg drop, or I poked you in the eye, or I threw a punch, no matter what it was, after I did it, I shouted Ooh La La. So what he has done, I told him, in his case, he's the shooter. After he does something, he could turn around and go, either who's the man now, or just shout out shooter, and he gets a reaction now.
Right.
It's not for everybody, but I tell the kids, don't take yourself too seriously, because at the end of the day, they remember the guy with toilet paper coming out of the back of the trunks, not the guy that did the 450.
That's true.
And why? It's because their kid remembered it and they talked about it on the way home.
That's true.
It's about creating that memory for that fan.
You've had a lot of toilet paper hanging over the years.
Oh, about a Scotch 20 roll, I would think. There's been no shortage.
Oh, man. So, all right, so LAW, October 14th, Glen Olden, Pennsylvania. And Delco is your home too, right? You're originally from Delco, right?
Actually, I was born in Southwest Philly. I got street credit, brother.
There you go.
Then I had lived in Delaware County for some time, probably about 20 years. But the reality of it is, I had worked in the Delaware County area, around that Glen Olden area, for almost 20 years, to the point where people honestly thought I lived in the neighborhood, and I wouldn't tell them no.
See, I thought you did. I when we first met, I think you.
When we first met, I lived in Delaware County. Yes.
Yeah.
I was not far from. Who was it? The kids from Chichester High School. I believe it was Grandizio, Sosha, and another gentleman would come over to my house.
Okay.
I met Zach Connor in Delaware County when he was a kid.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh yeah, it's been a hell of a ride.
The ride doesn't.
I remember taking. No. In 1987. Larry Sharp's father and I actually rode up to the Niagara Falls Convention Center to set up the ring for a joint venture between the NWA and the AWA when they put a super show on at the Niagara Falls Convention Center. And that's when they were battling hard against the WWF at the time. Because in 87, Vince really hadn't – he had his foothold, and they were – especially the AWA, they were really struggling to stay solid and relevant. Right. And they hung on there for a long time. But that's when, I think in the early 80s, or actually late 80s, early 90s, that's when you started seeing the dissolving of the territories. World Class was on a downswing. I mean, there was Southwest Championship Wrestling. I remember watching in the 80s with Bobby Jaggers, the Grapplers, Gino Hernandez. And then, of course, who didn't know Gordon Soley in this area?
Absolutely.
Who couldn't run a 4-minute mile to get home by 6:05? And damn those Braves if they ever made the playoff.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, that was fun. Me and Dan Peasy telling Dave Reed how they built so much excitement on TV, and the only way you could catch up with stuff if we didn't have the internet, you went to the magazine stores as a kid, and you were thumbing through the magazines.
That were 3 months behind.
Yeah, but you went there anyway. Though I will say, my favorite time of the year, honestly, to this day, still was the PWI 500. Watching the kids now on Facebook that finally make it, God bless them, because I thought I struck gold the first time I made it in there. It was fool's gold, but it was my gold. but honestly, you know the feeling. The first time you made it in there, you're like,
I never made it.
Holy snap.
I never made it. Nope.
I'll nominate you.
Well, thank you. I don't think it'll do any good now, but maybe I'll make the top.
It's their job to say no. I'm going to throw it out there. I'll call Murphy now.
There you go. So, all right. So we got October 14th, LAW, Glen Olden, Pennsylvania.
It's a Sunday at 2 o'clock. Yep, Sunday 2 o'clock. No Eagles game. You got the week off.
So everybody needs to come out, see Mr. Ooh La La. Now you guys are going for the titles.
That's right. Remember the one you wouldn't give up?
See that?
Yeah, Norm the Barfly and Courageous Cruz. Courageous Cruz, I'll have you know, has been a thorn in my side for some time, back to ECWA. So, Cruz, don't think I haven't forgotten about you. Yeah, you're a little older, but when I got older, I got smarter, and I don't think you did. And with Wyndham, he's still at Curves. I don't think he left since Saturday. I'll have to check, but I think he's still there working out. We are going to dominate. Norm, I respect you, my friend. Cruz, I respect you too, but this is not your time. It belongs to us.
There you go. So how about that? Come out and
how
see.
about that? Anybody has anything to say about it? You tell them to shut their
mouth. Too funny. Well, Mike, Mr. Ooh La La, I want to thank you for doing this, calling in. It was great talking to you, catching up on some old memories and learning more about you.
I will come by your studio one time, and we'll just do a whole. I'll bring some of my scrapbook of stuff I've saved over the years. We'll go through that next.
Ooh, that sounds like fun. I would totally be up for that.
All right.
Cool. Well, thank you.
We'll talk to my people, which means I'll text you later, okay? And we'll get this worked out.
There you go. It's too funny. And I'll see you next week, man. I'm looking forward to it.
All right. Ooh la la! Ha ha! Do you need a bumper?
Yeah, absolutely. Give me an Ooh La La bumper and listen to Totally Driven Radio.
All right, wrestling fans, you're listening to Monsieur Bay Regani on Totally Driven Radio. Ooh la la! Ha ha!
Now here's where I get to break your balls because you pronounced my name wrong.
You shut your mouth. I spelled it phonetically. All right, so how do I say your name properly?
Ragni.
Oh, Ragni, huh? All right, are you ready? On 3, 2, you are listening to Bay Ragni on Totally Driven Radio. And this is Ooh La La. Bay, you shut your mouth.
I'll try. Thank you, man.
Brady Hicks taught me what a bumper was.
How about that?
Thank you, Monsieur, and good night.
Good night. Mr. Ooh La La. Look for him, everybody. He's out there. Social media. And he's out at indie wrestling shows all the time. October 14th is the important one. Liberty All-Star Wrestling returns, homecoming, back to the old school. We're doing it again. There you go. Be there.
Now, what could we get Mr. Ooh La La to like? He can't make barbecue salsa. I don't think that's Ooh La La enough.
No.
Well, what could we get him to hawk though? There's got to be some
question. He needs like a Grey Poupon type thing.
Yeah, like a Dijon mustard or something like that.
Yeah.
That'd be so funny.
something where
because
you're
then he could mix his own, bring it to the shows, and either give it away or sell it. You know what I mean?
right, or like a wine, a sherry.
My only real issue with that is like the legality of it all when it comes to showing up at a random place and selling wine.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Even if I couldn't think of something, I would like. There's something that we could get. It wouldn't be too hard to print out labels to go over something else. You know what I'm saying? Like, and you could still sell them because the novelty is still there. Nobody really gives a shit if he handcrafted the ingredients. You know what I mean? The label is what sells it. So, you know, you go to like one of those places that sells like 30 different kinds of, you know, hot sauce or something like that, and just get his own label.